Hi, welcome to Movista Movie Recap. Today, I am here to present the most watched television series. Spoiler ahead. The story begins with a mysterious virus that has infected people around the world. Because of this virus, every person living in the world disappears except for one man, Phil Miller, who is the last man on the earth. He drives a bus and tries to search for any human being around them, but he doesn't find it, and they decide to search around all over America. He goes to all states and cities of America to look for more people, but he doesn't find any single human being, all are empty. He finds a map and starts crossing the states where he didn't find any single human being. He failed to find any humans, so Phil decided to return to his hometown, Tucson. He kept back and stole artifacts, paintings, and household items and left messages to every city on every billboard by writing "He is alive in Tucson." In Tucson, he goes to one of the big houses by locking the door from the rod and declaring it his new home and shifting all of the necessary stuff, and decorating the house from the famous painting. To overcome his loneliness, he kept involved in illegal activities. He went to the supermarket in his underwear and broke glasses, stole food from grocery stores, and crashed cars into each other. He makes us different shapes on the balls and makes them his friends and talks to him all the time. After 5 months, he was seen in very bad condition and his whole house was full of filth, and he himself was living in a lot of filth, including empty bottles, cans, and garbage which was never cleaned up. After a day, he goes to the dancing bar and draws different faces on balls and assigns his personality names. After some days, he drives his car and goes to nearby hills to commit a suicide attempt by hitting the car into the hills at full speed. Suddenly, he sees black smoke rising almost a 1 kilometer distance, and finally he succeeds in stopping the car before it crashes into the hills. When he reached near the smoke, he didn't believe his eyes to see a beautiful girl who is older than wearing a cap. Her name is Carol, who is alive on the earth. Then, he notices someone hanging up his clothes on the rope to dry under the sun. He tells Phil to see messages everywhere, which she is following, and then after a little talking, Phil takes Carol to show her home. When Carol visits Phil's house, she can't believe her eyes as Phil is living in a very filth condition to see a bunch of empty bottles, cans, and papers spreading on the floor of the house. After that, he returns to Carol at the camp where they meet. On next day when he wakes up, he sees Carol cleaning his house. Phil doesn't like this and talks to Carol about what they are doing there. He makes us complain to Balls about Carol and the things they did. Then, one day he is watching from the window. Carol is shifting near to his house. He tries their best to stop him, but Carol won't listen to him. After shifting next to his house, he asks Phil to help her with the gardening, but Phil flatly refuses. At night Phil eats all of the vegetables from Carol's garden. On the next day, he went to his house and saw the bandage on her right leg hurting while she was walking by finding water for the garden. Then Phil decided to help Carol and connected the city's main water pipeline from the Carol house to his garden. Then Carol invites them into his house and makes dinner and gives the idea that God has come to alive both of you to start the population in this world, and then Phil smiles and agrees on that. After that, Phil tries to love, but Carol refuses him to be intimate with anyone before marriage. Phil proposes to Carol and she finally accepts his proposal, and they are both happy about those decisions. In the evening Carol reached Phil's house and gave him a walkie-talkie to talk to each other, and they also told them to buy wedding rings. The next day she goes to decoration shops and makes the preparations to buy some balloons, dresses, and other decorating items for weddings to decorate the house. The wedding day has come and they both reach the church where both ring ceremonies through the tape recorder. When it is his turn to wear the ring, Phil starts searching for the ring in the pockets, but he forgot to take the ring. Due to this incident, Carol would get angry and leave from there and go back home. He then comes to her house to persuade her, where he sees that Carol has done a lot of decorations to celebrate the wedding, and he feels guilty and apologizes to Carol, and Carol also forgives him. After that she gives all the rings of the jewelry store to Carol. Let's wear it and both come and get married. After they get married, they love each other, but Phil doesn't look very happy. Then he does all the things with Carol that he does alone used to do. Both of them started roaming together around the city in the car. But suddenly Phil's car collides with a car coming from the side. Both the vehicles escaped from a bad accident. Phil immediately comes out of the car and checks the other car. Just then, a beautiful girl Melissa comes out of the car, which Phil is surprised to see. In behind, Carol calls out to Phil but Phil ignores him. Phil's car breaks down and Melissa drops him and Carol home. In the car Phil started thinking that if I had met first then he couldn't marry Carol. Carol also starts talking to Melissa. He also tells Melissa about his and Phil's marriage. To which Phil is not happy. Phil finds a chance to talk to Melissa. But Carol doesn't let her do that and Melissa lives in the house next door. Phil tries to impress Melissa by doing a beard shave. But neither Carol nor Melissa likes his look. Melissa tells the story at the dinner how her husband cheated on her so she left him. The next day when Melissa came to his house Phil was doing exercise. Melissa asks him about the car parked outside. Actually, the car was brought as a gift for Melissa. Carol is not very happy to see all this. He showed the marriage album to Melissa where he drew pictures of herself and Phil. In the evening Melissa invites Carol and Phil for a beer, where he met alone with Phil. Then he makes an excuse that Carol is unwell and reaches Melissa home alone. He drinks both here together and Melissa told Phil if he was single then maybe something could happen between them. Hearing this, Phil immediately comes to Carol to talk about divorce. But when he sees Carol painstakingly making their wedding frame, he is unable to say anything. If you need to know what happened next then subscribe to the channel and watch the second part of the series. Thank you for watching.